Welcome back to the channel. This is a More Better Ascend coming at you with a not so budget, but also budget, historic elf deck. This deck is all over the place. It's always been around since the beginning of Magic. The Llanowar Elves and just elves in general, they've just been around forever. It's one of the staple creatures that came out in the original Magic set, and they've just continued to build on this tribe more and more and more. And I feel like as though that I've created maybe the perfect elf deck, but that's up to your judgment. You can let me know in the comments below what you think of this, what you'd replace, what you'd take out. But let's hop into the deck as I've made it, and then we'll talk about some replacements and things like that at the end of the video. So at 1 mana, we have the classic Llanowar Elves. This card was reprinted for Foundations. It's just a super solid turn 1 play, just for 1 mana to be able to ramp you into the next turn so you can get more creatures out. Is amazing. And you know, this deck you're gonna have no shortage of mana the entire time, and we'll get into that when we get to those creatures. But Llanowar Elves, awesome turn 1 play. We have the Elvish Mystic as another turn 1 play, so it's basically Llanowar Elves clone. It's another 1/1 for 1 that adds 1 mana, so you're always almost going to be guaranteed to have that turn 1 play to ramp. And speaking of ramping, we have the Wirewood Symbiote, which is a insect. This is one of the 2 non-elf creatures in this deck. This is from Modern Horizons 3. This says that you can return an elf you control to your owner's hand once a turn and untap target creature. So you can return your Llanowar Elf back to your hand after you've tapped one of these other creatures we're going to get into that taps for a ton of mana, and then untap it, tap it again, and you basically doubled your mana from that 1 creature. So this is a great card. It's newer card, so I haven't seen a lot of people putting it in their decks, but I think this is going to be great synergy and going to be able to help you get that Craterhoof Behemoth out earlier. We have the Elvish Clancaller. This is one of the first lords we're going to talk about. This is a 2 mana 1/1 that says other elves you control get +1/+1. And then late game mana sink. If you have nothing else to do, or you ran out of cards in your hand, you can pay 6 and you can search your library for another Elvish Clancaller, put it into play, and then shuffle your library. So this could also be, you know, a game-ending play. You could be off by a certain amount of damage. You do this, all of your creatures get +1/+1, and then you might have enough damage to break through and get to the end. Only have 3 of those in the deck. Then we have the Elvish Warmaster. This is the Lord of the Rings art. I don't really like this art that much, but it was way cheaper than the other art. So that's why I bought this one. Always trying to look to cut corners as much as you possibly can whenever making a Magic deck. That's always my mentality. So this is a 2 mana 2/2 that whenever an elf enters the battlefield, you get to create a 1/1 Green Elf Warrior creature token once a turn. So basically, you're going to be putting out so many elves every turn. This is basically just an elf token generator. It's a monster. It's just going to constantly pump out tokens once a turn, and just going to continue to build and build and build your creature total. And then with all the lords, you're really going to be creating a 3/3 or a 4/4 every turn, which is insane. And then just like the Clancaller, this has a mana sink that can help you get over the hump of winning, where you pay 7 and then all your elves get +2/+2 and gain Death Touch till end of turn. All right, now let's get into the giant mana dorks. This is the Priest of Titania. You get to add 1 green for each elf on the battlefield. This is one of those cards that we're going to really be targeting with the Wirewood Symbiote, because we can tap it, let all that mana sit in our mana pool, and then return a Llanowar Elf to our hand, untap it, tap it again. You've doubled your mana from just this 1 creature, and then you can just start casting like crazy. Leafcrown Visionary. This is another lord. This is insane for card advantage. Like I said, we're gonna have a ton of mana, and then this says whenever you cast an elf spell, you can pay 1, and if you do, you get to draw a card, which will constantly keep your hand full, constantly keep elves being cast, and just pumping out tons and tons of creatures onto the battlefield. And the kicker of this, other elves you control get +1/+1. So it's another lord. Just creating bigger and stronger creatures. All right, next up is the Elvish Archdruid. Now this is like a combo of the last 2 cards combined. This is a lord, so it gives your creatures +1/+1, and then you get to add 1 mana for each elf that you control. So again, another target for the Wirewood Symbiote to untap to gain a ton of mana. We have the Marwyn the Nurturer. This is a 3 mana 1/1 legendary elf that every time an elf enters the battlefield, you get to put a 1/1 counter on this creature, and then you can tap it equal to its power. So if you have a Warmaster out there and you cast a Llanowar Elf, you're going to get 1 +1/+1 counter for the Llanowar Elf, and then you're going to get another +1/+1 counter for the Elf Warrior creature token that this creature creates. So you're just doubling it up. So this creature is going to get huge quickly, and then you can do the same thing like I was talking about with the Wirewood Symbiote, and tap it and then untap it and tap it again, and double the amount of mana that it outputs. Okay, next lord is the Imperious Perfect. This is a 3 mana 2/2. Other elves you control get +1/+1, and then you get to just pump out more Elf Warrior creature tokens every turn. For 1 mana, you get to create a 1/1 green elf creature token and then tap this creature. So other elves you control get +1/+1. So every turn you can pay 1 mana and then you can get a 2/2 Elf Warrior creature token, which is absolutely insane. I only have 2 of these in the deck just because it costs 3. Wanted to try and keep the curve a little bit lower and keep the average mana cost down, but this is another phenomenal Lord and Elf token generator. We have Dwynen. This is a 4 mana legendary creature. It has reach, which is great because there's a lot of flyers out there and we don't have really anything that can block flying other than this creature. It's another Lord. Elf creatures get +1/+1. This is a 3/4 already. And then the best part of this card is whenever this creature attacks, you gain 1 life for each attacking elf you control. So if this is just on the battlefield by itself, you gain a life every time it attacks. But if you have a flooded board of tokens and other creatures, you tack in with 7 different elves, you're going to gain 7 life that turn, which is pretty crazy. And then all of them get +1/+1 on top of it, so you're going to be going in for a ton of damage, and then also gaining a lot of life to help. If you don't beat them that turn, it'll help with the crackback if you tap out with everything. All right, now the big boy, the Craterhoof Behemoth, an 8 mana 5/5 with haste, which normally you'd be like, what the heck? What am I spending 8 mana for a 5/5 with haste? But the ability says when Craterhoof Behemoth enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X till end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. So just like I said with Dwynen, you attack with 7 creatures, you gain 7 life. With this, once you put this on the battlefield, if you have those 7 creatures on the battlefield, all your creatures are going to get +7/+7 and trample. This is a game-ending play. If you can get this out, it will almost always end the game for you if you have a decent amount of creatures on the battlefield. Now, we only have 2 of these because I only own 2 of them. A lot of decks only put 1 in, and you'd think, oh, this is your big win condition. Why do you only have 1, or why do you only have 2? Because you don't really want to draw this in your opening hand because it costs 8. You want to fill your hand with a bunch of cheaper creatures, and then that's why we have the Fierce Empath. Now, this is a 3 mana 1/1 that when it enters the battlefield, you can search your library for a creature card with mana value 6 or greater, and the Craterhoof Behemoth is 8, and then you can reveal it and put it in your hand. So it sucks you have to reveal it because then they know it's coming, but most people that know Magic know that when you play a Fierce Empath in an elf deck that you're going to go get a Craterhoof. But then you got 2 of these and 2 of these, so that's 4 of your win condition right there. And then your Fierce Empath, you'd think, oh, it's only a 1/1 for 3, meh. But with the amount of lords that we have in this deck, this is going to be like a 4/4 for 3 mana, which is great. All right, let's jump into the land phase. So 20 total lands, because we generate so much mana with our creatures, we don't need to do more than that land-wise. We have 18 forests. This cool Lord of the Rings art looks like the dark forest from that the elves live in. And then we have a Beseju, which is great because it gives us that one ability to destroy something, whether it be an artifact, an enchantment, or to screw them with their mana, or if they have a creature land that's bothering us. And with we have 4 legendary creatures, so this could get discounted by 1, which is great. But even for 2 mana, it's great. I only have 1 of these in the deck. And we can also play it as just a regular land, so it gives them some flexibility. Then we have the Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. This is a legendary land where you add 1, where you can pay 2 and tap it and choose a color and add that amount of mana equal to your devotion. So you look up here, we have 57 total pips on this deck. There are so many double greens, double green, double green, triple green. There's so much green in this deck. So many pips that your devotion is going to be crazy. So between all the mana dork juggernauts, the little mana dorks up here, and then having the Nykthos, you're going to have so much mana, you're not even know what to do with all of it. So that's the deck. Like I said before, this is $195, but if you replace 4 cards from this deck, you can make this $46. So we could take out the 2 Craterhoof Behemoths, the Nykthos, and the Beseju, and that would cut out all these cards are $35 to $38 each, or $39. So just cutting those 4 cards out drastically reduces the price of this deck, and you can do this on a budget then. And then you can take out the 2 Fierce Empaths because you don't need them anymore. So you can replace these with forests, and then you can replace the 4 cards up there with possibly an Elvish Visionary or an Elven Ambush. Elven Ambush is so good. It's from Kaldheim. You get to create a 1/1 elf warrior creature token for each elf you control, and it's an instant. So if you tap out and you attack and you have 4 open mana, when they come back for the crackback, you can cast this and just create a wall of elf warrior creature tokens that, with all the lords that we have, they're all going to be, like I said before, 4/4s, 5/5s. They're going to be crazy. For 4 mana, that's an insane value. I really, really, really thought about putting these into the deck, regardless of having the Craterhoof. But because I had the Craterhoof, I had to put that in there. I think that's a better game ender just because of the haste. These won't have haste, so you will be subject to a board wipe possibly on the next turn. But yeah, or you could throw in some Elvish Visionaries and draw more cards, or they have the Dwynen's Elite that helps you create more tokens when it enters the battlefield. But creating that many, you think about how many elves you're going to have between the Imperious Perfect creating tokens and the Elvish Warmaster creating tokens. You're going to be creating tons and tons of elves, and if you have 2 of those, you could cast 2 of them in 1 turn, just because you have so much mana that you'd easily be able to have 8 mana. And then whenever an elf you control enters, put a 1/1 counter on Marwyn. So then Marwyn is going to go bananas. If you have 7 creatures, all of a sudden out of nowhere, this will already be more than a 1/1, and now you're just going to add another +7/+7 to it. Then you could tap this and cast another one, and then add another 14 +1/+1 counters to this. So she's going to be an absolute beast. So you can see that there's a lot of different ways to build an elf deck. I chose to go the Craterhoof route. That's the more classic route when it comes to creating an elf deck. But like I said, it's flexible. You can do this on a budget. Those instants that create the elves are only about $4 each. So that's a big price difference from the Craterhoofs, which are like $40. So if you like this deck, do the algorithm things, like, comment, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. Leave me a comment down below of what you would do to change this deck. If you don't want the Craterhoof on the top end, and you have another creature that's over 6 mana that would fit in this slot better, that maybe is a little more of a budget choice, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear about them, because I'm always up to getting suggestions and changing things about my deck. So you let me know what you think, and until next time, we'll catch you for the next one.